Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to start off day one, what folks have been playing in standard best of 3. If you're a best of 1 gamer, put out a video up already on my YouTube. You can check it out, same playlist. So with this here, it's day 1. Let's not overreact. The meta hasn't been solved, anything like that. There's been a lot of server issues, deck building, sideboarding. You can't check your opponent's graveyard unless you have priority. Tons of bugs with this release. Having said that, the population of games is a little bit smaller than what it would normally be for a day 1 just because of the complications. The intent of this video is to showcase some decks folks have been trying out with relative win rates that we can get from Untapped GG. Usually it takes 2-3 days for us to get a full kind of win rate data set, which we'll be back and be providing those videos. Similarly with MTGO, I just checked. The most recent league is basically just Convoke decks. Nothing really new there. They're all old cards that were there. So they haven't had a first kind of release of new cards into the format yet in terms of stats. So we'll be back with the actual stats one. This one is intending to be an idea video. Give you an idea of what people are trying out, stuff of that nature. If you're limited on wild cards, you may want to wait a couple days before crafting anything just to see where things kind of land. So we're going to get this stuff from Untapped in terms of the deck list. So tracks like user win rates, it's been a little screwy. Like I played the same deck and it's anytime I made a change to the deck, it created a new deck entry. So some of the numbers might be a little screwy with the current arena patch. Another thing to kind of be mindful, there's a bug I found. Say, for example, you add the alt art of Monastery Swiftspear from cons, it marks it as not legal in standard. So another thing to just be mindful of that. But I'll paste these deck lists. We'll kind of go from there. These are folks that have recently got into Mythic, and we can kind of take a look at their deck lists. So let's jump into it. The first list is from KO80s. They're 12-5 with this list, and it's a cool one. It's Rat Tribal. So we got some cards here. Even with this, it's being a little particular, so we got to go classic view here, but we'll kind of walk through and then we'll take a look at the curve itself. So cut downs, go for the throats as removal. You have Nizumi comes in, each opponent discards a card. You have Shoreline Looter, a new card. So it can't be blocked. And then when you have Threshold, so 7 or more cards in your graveyard, and it deals combat damage to player. So whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card unless 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. So it's a looter, but once you have Threshold, it's basically just card draw for your rats. We have Azure Beastbinder. Vigilance 2 mana 1/3. Target creature. So it can't be blocked by creatures of power 2 or greater. And it basically, when it attacks up to one target artifact, creature, or planeswalker opponent control, loses all ability until on the turn. It becomes a 2/2 creature. This card kicked my ass in draft. I just kept like turning all my big things into little things and just poking through and dealing a bunch of damage. You got a Skitter in here. You got Keramix, Toxic, and your other rats get Toxic. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of the library. You may reveal any number of rats from among them and put the revealed cards in your hand. So just like draw a bunch of rats. You also have Nashi, Moon's Legacy. So Sultai mana 3/4, Menace Ward. When it attacks, exile up to one target legendary or rat card from your graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy. So some value there kind of coming back. There's 3 Lord Skitters. Weird that it's showing this way. Then we have Vren the Relentless. Ward 2, if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So kind of the Kalidas, it's Rat Kalidas. And then at the beginning of each end step, create X rats. With this creature, it gets +1/1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. So kind of just a scalable threat. Pylon with the Convoke with going wide with the rats. You have Wick the World Mind, 4 mana 2/4. Whenever it or another rat you control enters, you create a snail token. If you don't control snail, otherwise put a 1/1 counter on a snail you control. Then you have Grixis, sacrifice a snail, deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to each opponent, then draw cards equal to its ability. So you'll see just kind of funny, just a 1 of red to kind of get that effect. It's the only way to make red mana in the ability, so a little interesting there. You have also Rotten Mouth Viper, 6 mana 6/6 as an additional cost to cast this spell. You may sacrifice any number of non-lands, basically just an alternative to casting it. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a blight counter on it. Then for each blight counter, each opponent loses 4 life unless that player sacrifices non-land permanent or discards a card. So just kind of taking advantage of all the fodder. Caverns for your mice, or your rats, sorry, and then plazas also still legal in the format. Cut downs is removal. Pick your poison for bigger things, artifacts, enchantments. Good against Traxa. Assassin's trophies, catch-all removal. Another binder for like bigger things. Strokes, go for the throats on. Basically just counters where needed for like sweepers and stuff. Removal, and then Kaido for like the grindier matchups. So again, just kind of looking at the curve. A lot of 2s, a lot of 3s, and then some 4s, but the 4s get some utility in terms of convoking, and then the Rod and Mouth can be as little as 1 mana cast in this deck. Then we move on. We got one version of Golgari, and then we'll cover a different version. There's a couple different takes on Golgari thus far being tried out. So this one is by Flappy. They're 21 and 6. And this list here, a couple new cards to feature. So taking a look at the curve, a lot of 1s, 2s, 3s, kind of the Golgari fashion. Note Scout. So this one's probably a little bit more aggressively leaning. Note helps you kind of hit your early land drops, or just is a 1 mana 2/2. Patch Recruiter, 1 mana 2/1 trample, or you can offspring it, which is kind of like a kicker. And for 3 mana, you basically get the 2/1 plus a copy that is a 1/1. And then these creatures have, whenever it becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you get to put a 1/1 counter on another creature. So this is kind of like a Golgari's counters, the sub-theme deck. Deep Cavern Bat as disruption, Mosswood Dread Knight for card advantage, Go for the Throat as removal, so notably no cut downs in the main in this one. We have Innkeeper's Talent, so a new class card. Beginning of your combat, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. For a green, your creatures get ward if they have a counter on it, ward 1. And then for 4 mana, if a player or a creature or anything gets a counter, you put twice that many counters. So this is kind of a combo element with the deck, which we'll cover in a sec. Lilies for grind, Preachers, Ren, and the Realm Breaker. So if you hit this last mode of the class, actually, no, it doesn't work because it's not the counters. Some of these, like green creatures, like Nissa, for example, used to put counters. This just creates a 3/3, but helps you ramp, recycle some cards from the graveyard, value add. Gix as a sweeper, but the combo kind of element is Vraska's Betrayal Sting. If you have Vraska, if you're able to ultimate it, and with the class on the last mode, they get 18 poison, so they die that way there. So it becomes like a one-shot, but also just the proliferate with all the counters plays nicely, some card advantage as well, some virtues as removal. You'll also see the new land fountain port in the mana base. Draws cards by sacking tokens. You can pay life and get some tokens or get some treasures kind of mixed into there. Fables in the mana base. Hand hate, graveyard hate, cut downs as removal, graveyard hate, another all patch formation. 2 mana, just kind of flexible. I would probably just play Pick Your Poison, to be honest. Just seems like a more efficient rate. Terra Sunder, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Choking Miasma for kind of a low to the ground sweepers, Baloth for heavy discard, and Deadly Cover Up as a sweeper. From there, we go to another version. So Jaffer, Twitch content creator, 83, 8 and 3. So this one's a little bit different of a list. So this one here, he wanted to leverage off Caustic Bronco as well as Dark Star Augur as a way to kind of get card advantage from life loss. So this kind of keeps it churning in terms of the deck, in terms of cards coming into play. So it's a little bit lower of a curve than the other Golgari deck. This one's also playing Iridescent Vine Slasher. So same ability with the Offspring. Basically 2 creatures for 1. This one has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to target opponent. So you kick it, every land is basically a shock to your opponent. Hand Hate and Duress, Seed of Hope helps you kind of mill to find your permanents, gains you some life. You have cut downs as removal, edicts, deep cavern bats as disruption, Mosswood Dread Knights in here, Bandit's Talent as another class. So this one here enters the battlefield. Each opponent discards 2 cards unless they discard a non-land permanent. Then it basically creates like the rack style effect for 1 at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. If that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, they lose 2 life. Then for 4 at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card for each opponent who has 1 or fewer cards in hand. So just a grindy for the mid-range decks. Card advantage, hand hate kind of effect. Vine Reaper Mentor, 2 mana 3/2 beater that creates a food token upon ETB and death. So it's a way to kind of gain some life to offset the life damage that you take from the Augurs and the Broncos. Overthrows, Frillbacks, Glissas kind of all mixed into there as well. Just various removals effects, pick your poison, Graveyard Hate, Terra Sunders, another Glissa for the aggro mirrors, Lily for the grind. We see Malicious Eclipse as their choice for sweepers. We have Forge and Frontier for red and green decks to get kind of provide value against those removal effects. Another Frillback and then Shieldred. Go to small TDs, 10Ds. 8 and 3, so this is just a different take on the Convoke deck. So this one's going Jeskai. Through Jeskai, we get access to Spyglass Siren as well as Case, just other ways to have 1 mana ways to create an artifact and potentially a body. This version here has also got a Zoetic Glyph in here to animate, single Evangel, single War Leader, so very similar to what we've seen in the Boros decks, just adding the blue cards, so it's kind of like an artifact sub-theme. Sideboards, just removal with Barrage, Get Lost, and hate with the invasions, some counters and No More Lies and Protect the Negotiators. Heavy removal decks like those Golgari decks, we have Urbrass Forge, and then Witch Stalker's Frenzy for the bigger removal effects. And then lastly, we go to Pokemito. They're 21 and 8 with this list, and it is a mouse deck. So again, taking a look at the curve, and we'll jump into the deck itself. So Cheeky Host Mouse, Adventure to give a boost, and then a 2/1 mouse. We have Fleet of Flowerfoot Swordmaster, Offspring again, 3 mana, 2 bodies. Valiant. So Valiant is similar to Heroic, but it's once per turn, and unlike Heroic, abilities do trigger it as well. So every time this gets targeted once per turn, your mice get +1/0. So it's kind of an anthem effect. Heartfire Hero, similar Valiant effect. You put a counter on it, and then when it dies, it's like a Cacophony Scamp. It deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Scamp does hit creatures or permanents. This always goes to opponent, so be mindful of that. Rages and Meeks as pump effects. The Might of the Meeks gives a pump, trample, and draws a card. We have Emberheart Challenger here, so this is probably my favorite card of the set. 2 mana, haste, prowess, Valiant. Whenever it gets targeted, you get to exile top card of your library and cast it or play it till end of the turn. So just card advantage stapled onto a mouse. I've been playing this in mono red, really like it. We have Manifold Mouse, 2 mana, 1/2, Offspring again. And then beginning of your combat, target mouse you control gains your choice of double strike or trample. So if you Offspring it, every creature becomes Embercleave, which is kind of cool in that respect. Rabid Gnaw, 2 mana, target creature gets +1/0 until end of the turn and then deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So it's an interesting kind of take, an effect we typically see in green in terms of the deal damage effects, now in a red. We have Raging Battle Mouse from Eldraine, 2 mana, 2/1. Second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less. And then Celebration, if 2 or more permanents entered the battlefield, target creature gets +1/1 until the turn, so this will trigger the Valiant. So it's another way to trigger Valiant. And we have Mabel, 3 mana, 3/3. Other mice you control get +1/1. When Mabel enters battlefield, you create a legendary equipment that for 2 mana to equip gets +1/1, Vigilance, Trample, Haste. So a lot of really strong effects there. And then equipping does trigger Valiant as well. We have 2 of the new lands. So the Lupin Flower Village. So notably, these lands, you could only add colored mana for creature spells. So any of these like red pump effects don't work. So for 2 mana and tap, you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal, this case, only mouse is applicable, and then put it in your hand. So it's card advantage. And then the Rockface Village, basically similar effect, but gives haste. Sideboard, Braid for removal, along with Guest Loss, card advantage in case, as well as Urbrass Forge, and the Witch Stalker Frenzy is removal. So that is it. I will come back with the best decks as soon as we get the stats in, but this is giving you an idea of what people are playing as a start. So I hope you have a good one. Happy playing, and hopefully they fix these servers soon and we can actually play the client. Thanks for watching. Have a great one. Stay safe out there.